Recording has started. There we go. So in our Slack channel, we had ideas for this. So this is, I think, the third one we've had, Rose, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, I didn't make the first one.
Third. Yeah. We had Dominic's been on all of them. We had one November time, one I think in before Christmas, and this is the first one for 2020. And you had a suggestion of somebody suggested we put up where people could suggest topics, which I'm starting to put a form together and build out a site where they could do that, and also sort of make it into a working party and have sort of discussions about, I guess, what things have been mentioned in the news, whether it's in the Better IT Monitor or other bits of information we've heard about, or conferences we've been to, other things that we can share and discuss. Because it's always easier to discuss in person as opposed to typing. With a lot of these things, easier to jump on a call. Colleen's joined from down there in DC. So yeah, you, Rose, had spoken or suggested that you got help for your was it a checklist?
Yeah, so I'm working on a blog post for Better Cloud, actually, cool. But it's also like a selfish thing. Like we want this on our team, so we're working on a checklist for basically software evaluation, right? How to choose a best-in-breed software. And for my blog post, obviously, I want it to be a lot more general and not just like super specific to what my company wants and what my company needs, because we're in the nonprofit higher ed niche. And so we have different needs sometimes. And so I really wanted to crowdsource this. And I figured if we needed a topic for this Solve meeting, then we could do that.
Yeah, sounds brilliant.
So I can share what I have now, and then people can, I guess, chime in with additional things, and I'll just take notes, and
we'll
just let the conversation go where it goes.
Yeah, let's do it live. Let's collaborate live.
Do it live.
Yeah, we could all, jump on the dock and edit it together and really show.
I guess I can do that. It is a Google Doc, so hopefully everybody can.
Yeah. Is anybody here not get a credit on G Suite?
I know Colleen's not on Google, but you can still use Google, I'm sure. So I will.
Colleen on Office 365?
Yeah, I think so.
You joined Hangout so seamlessly.
It's because she's an IT admin. Not totally seamlessly. She can't figure out her audio.
No. Maybe she's frozen.
So I posted the link to the document in there. I see a bunch of people joining.
All right. I'll have to join from my laptop because I'm on a Chrome base here. To grab the doc.
No. So I kind of organized it initially into like how you're thinking about things. So like when you're doing the trial of the of the software, versus during the initial eval, which is where you're like, do I want to like contact the salespeople and talk through all of this, right, in order to get to the trial? And then I had some other things. And so I think I'm going to reorganize it into more like user experience, admin experience, security kind of stuff. But there were some things that I didn't feel like fit very well. So these are my things. So I always feel like everything needs to have a good UI experience. I think that's the most important thing for our users. I always say if it reminds me of Windows XP, it's probably not a good thing. Multiple admin roles. This is something that we don't use necessarily as much right now, but as our team grows, we'll use it more. And I know larger organizations, like this is a requirement. And it helps with that least permissions access. And then basic analytics, which you would think is included in everything, but it's not. GDPR, CCPA documentation, always that kind of stuff. And then, so The initial eval stuff is just like have to have, like these are baseline stuff. But I'm curious to hear if people think that those are have to haves for them, right? Or if some of them are nice to haves.
Just can't
You
get
want
it
to
to
share your
document.
screen?
Yeah, I can.
Share your doc, and then we can, because this isn't, I guess this would be shared. You don't mind sharing it if we do, as we are recording this, and if we make it a show, there's nothing in here that's not going to be shared later on with the community anyway, is it?
Yeah, no, this will all be available, and I want it to be publicly accessible.
Right.
So,
okay.
Can you guys see that? Okay.
Yeah, there we go. And then we're all on the same page, I guess, for what we're looking at.
Make it bigger.
Okay, so choosing best in breed SaaS brainstorm.
So yeah, so these are, I guess, what I would consider are like have to haves. Although I guess this one's not a have to have, is it?
Well,
If all of our software had transparent pricing, I probably wouldn't have all that. What do you think?
Fair. Maybe one thing you
wouldn't
could
get
add
us.
is something related to support, like the way their support offerings, if they offer live chat, if they offer phone line, things like that. Something to evaluate as part of the overall evaluation.
Yeah,
I cannot believe I forgot about support.
yeah, we always do.
In my mind, in my mind, having pricing listed, I mean, it's simply a suggestion. It's a good point to go off of.
A strong suggestion, but a
All
suggestion.
pricing negotiable.
Yeah.
But virtually every single SaaS provider will either they completely hide their pricing and say call us for pricing, or it will be basic, pro, enterprise, call for details, because that if I've got 100 accounts or 10,000 accounts, the scale is going to slide so much, and it is sometimes it's a put off not having that information up front, especially if some of the so they don't provide any sort of benchmark of what the pricing might be. But yeah.
Well, and people are so tight-lipped about pricing. Like even if you do searching online to try to figure out what something costs, like I will say Better Cloud's a little bit like that too, even though they have a public pricing tier. But
yes.
And it can be for a lot of reasons. I just learned. So like we're doing an eval of SaaS spend management apps. And so like Intello used to have transparent pricing, but they're going through like a website redesign right now, a brand redesign. And so they took a lot of that information off while they're like figuring out the design of their page and all that stuff. So yeah, so it was really interesting because I literally was just on a call with them yesterday and we were going over, I already have a quote from them, so I know what their pricing was, but I was like, you had pricing on this page 2 months ago.
Yeah. And if you do sign up with a service, often the MSA or the contract will say that pricing is not to be discussed, or pricing is confidential.
As far as the first bullet point on the during initial eval goes, again, I don't know what industries you all are a part of, but you might just change that to basic certifications, compliance certifications. For us, if they don't have a SOC or something like that, then that raises a whole bunch of other questions.
Or HIPAA.
Yep, or HIPAA or FedRAMP for US based folk.
Yep.
There's all kinds of things out there now.
And it also depends what they're going to do.
Yes.
Regarding what their access they have to your information and what they might be storing. It's a sort of a risk, isn't it? As you would base their security requirements based on what risk they could pose to your organization.
Another one of my security requirements, and you'll be surprised at how many I've had fail this, is when I ask, like, hey, once we stop being your customer, how long does it take you to get rid of our data? And I have had companies especially like the last 4 or 5 that I did for continuous feedback improvement, it was, oh, it's our data and we keep it forever.
What?
Yeah. Actually, yes.
See you later.
So that interestingly enough, that's why I put the GDPR stuff in there, because with the rise of GDPR, we've seen a little bit less of that. But I think like definitely a few years ago, like it was like every company was like, oh yeah, we keep it as long as we want to keep it. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
And there's even a couple like, if we request to have it removed, do you remove it? No. Okay. We're unable to do that.
Yeah.
And then
how many companies say that they're not able to do that kind of thing?
Right. And another thing with we're doing NIST and CMMC compliance here next year. So one of the things that I'm going to need is full administrative audit logs for going back 90 days on all of our applications, like every click an administrator does. Which I have not had anyone that offers that.
As a quick round robin, what industry is everybody in? Because I'm like, Rose, you're in education, aren't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nonprofit higher ed.
Nonprofit higher ed. I work for a digital advertising agency. Colleen?
Agile development, software development firm in DC. So we have all the Fed stuff, and we do a lot of DoD business.
Okay, who else we got? We got Mike.
I work for a company called Doximity. It's basically a medical, the LinkedIn for medical professionals, essentially.
Okay, all right. Personal information there for sure. Education, personal information. David, is he there speaking, or was he muted before and wasn't replying? I think so. Derek.
I work for it's a technology company. We build cloud software, but our customers are in the financial world because we have financial and regulatory reporting. That's what our tool does.
Right. Okay. So some regulated stuff there.
Yeah, pretty heavily regulated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then of course Dominic's a G Suite reseller services company, and then Mike was with Better Cloud, who do manage access. A lot of our data would be classed as high risk, so they have all the. Michael, you have all the SOC 2 stuff, don't you?
Yeah, SOC 2 Type 2, I think.
Yeah.
And you guys got ISO recently, right? 27,000.
Think so, yeah.
Yeah, I remember Austin saying that.
Yep.
Okay. It's very interesting to mention, Colleen, about the checking with the data removal process. Who here has left a SaaS provider? One, Rose, Colleen.
I've replaced every SaaS provider we had in the last 3 years.
Pardon?
I've replaced everything that we had in the last 3 years, so there is nothing left that is before Colleen.
That's what they're gonna say.
That's what they say.
That was BC. That was before Colleen. That's what my current company is gonna be like after we're done with it. It's gonna be.
Do any of you? Yeah.
And then you leave and you do it again.
As you all go through this process, do any of you have a particular survey or something that you send to these vendors that they need to fill out? Like for instance, when we're doing a security review, again, regulated environment, we've got a survey that we send to these companies, which address a lot of these questions, and we can kind of assign a risk score based from that.
I have a survey that I fill out, but I insist on it being a phone call because I want to ensure that this application, they're accessible for support and any other questions.
Yeah, that's true. Because if you can't get them on the phone, you're not going to be able to get them on the phone when something bad happens.
Right.
I personally hate filling out those surveys. We do provide a software platform for some of our clients, and they our higher ed clients specifically tend to send us those surveys, and I fucking hate filling them out. So I would rather do like Colleen said, definitely a conversation about those things. I don't care if we go through a checklist of questions, but I don't know. Yeah, that's part of why I'm developing this, right? So that in these calls with sales folks, right, I'm not getting like oohed and awed by the product. I'm like, these are the set questions I have to ask you. And I have to make sure that even if the answer is not what I want it to be, that I know what the answer is. So.
Okay.
And if something is maybe on the roadmap or not.
I just wanted to point out, I think that Hiram had joined the call. Is that how you pronounce your name correctly?
It's Hiram. Hi, guys.
Hiram, yes. And I know you famously took down Google Drive yesterday by got blamed for the Google Drive outage by uploading lots of documents, I think you were doing.
Too many documents. Yeah, I brought down the whole service.
It's amazing. It's just to have a little sidetrack. It's amazing how something that you do that's different or strange within G Suite can coincide, with like a Google outage. I was testing advanced protection program on my account, and as I enabled it on my account, our IT team started to get loads of reports of people being unable to log in. So it turned out it was a Google outage, but I was like, oh my god, I've enabled advanced protection program, and the whole of Google has gone down. This is terrible. So quickly turned it off and had to wait for. So yeah, it's terrible when those things coincide, and it's just a bad coincidence. So
you start questioning all the actions you've done in the past hour.
Yeah. Like, I only did one thing. How can it affect it, an entire corporation? So another domain. So yeah, we're just going through Rosie's brainstorming list for how to choose the best in breed SaaS applications. So we're talking a lot about security requirements.
And how do you engage other teams? So like, if people services needs an application, do they start with you, or do they start looking at applications and building their own requirements?
Well, so we're doing one with marketing right now, which is actually very frustrating. So they've basically like burned this marketing team to the ground, and they're building it back now. And we've got a whole bunch of people coming over from like one company. Like we have a whole bunch of people coming over from the NCAA because the new head of marketing is from there. And so she brought a bunch of her team. And at their old job, they had custom applications because the NCAA is a much larger organization. So they had all these custom applications to do these things for them. And so now they're like, well, now we need software to do this stuff for us because we're not going to develop it, right? Because we're not big enough for that. So they really try to like do it themselves and then just ask us to buy it. And that doesn't fly with my boss.
No.
Or me, really, because the first application that they wanted to buy, like we went to the website, everything looked good, but you tried to reach out to them and it was like the company didn't exist. Like they were a ghost. And I was like, how did you even find this on the internet? Yeah. I don't know how you got to this software site. And so we're trying to kind of like steer the control of this process like more towards our team, but it is difficult because like when people want something, they want it. And so like to go back on that and say like, oh, like what use case are you actually trying to solve? And like go back and ask those questions to make them think about it a little bit more. Like they're a little bit frustrated.
Yeah.
That we were like, wait, we're not just going to buy the first thing you ask us to buy.
So I've actually created a form now as a backlog software request form that they have to reach out. They have to get their requirements.
We have one in our ticketing system.
3 options. Yeah. They have to give me 3 options and give me an email address of a person that I can schedule a security call with.
Oh, yeah. The security call, I feel like, is the hardest part. If you have strict security compliance issues, like the software purchasing process is so much longer because of that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we're getting a SOC 2 this year, and so I'm not looking forward to having to do those things for every single thing we buy, but that's what we have to do. So,
yep.
Yeah.
We did 20,000, 27,000 last year. We're doing SOC 2, CMMC, and NIST this year. And it's all on me. I am the
Yeah, correctly onboarding a new supplier is a lengthy process from the financial, the legal side, especially if you're part of a large organization. Our parent company has a lot of documents that have to be, signed. There's a lot of checks and balances that have to be made. So to make sure that there's a bona fide, genuine reseller, and just to sort of stop internal fraud that may or may happen, and certainly does happen in some organizations, regardless of the size of them. So.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I like your 12-page form. Your sister company's 12-page form was amazing.
Yes, yeah. When you were working with one of our, I think it's like a second cousin once removed now, but yeah, that company would have had the same requirements.
Yeah. Well, because it was funny, a few years ago, right, my company was acquired. And so similar situation, like before, we just, like the IT team pretty much, like we were the gatekeepers of everything, right? Like we had one legal person. If she wanted to review our contracts, she could. But mostly she was reviewing like our client contracts. And so we didn't have to run a lot of that stuff by her. Like we didn't have to, like we had to put things that were over a certain threshold in the budget. And so you had to write a business case for it. But like that process wasn't super strenuous either. And then once we were acquired, now we have like a 10-person legal team. And like every single thing we do has to be approved by that now. And we have a contract management system that we have to submit things for. And like, it's very different. So I feel like, I almost envy sometimes like the folks who work for the smaller like startup SaaS companies, right? And do IT for them, because I'm like, you can just
it's a tool, buy it.
Like if you just argue hard enough to get what you want, like there's no amount of arguing sometimes that can get me what I want.
Lawyers certainly do like to redline documents. And that can be the most lengthy part of any negotiation. But certainly a checklist like this or a plan, helps with some of the process to go through and evaluate what the right service is. The one thing I know you put down about GDPR and security, and then support was added. The one thing that I always want from a new SaaS application is proper auditing, and an API now. And it's like amazing, how many still don't have it. I think you've got your integrations, APIs, and auditing. There's so many players out there. Some of the older ones don't.
What do you require from an auditing standpoint, Colin?
The ability to see account activity, to see usable audit logs. I don't want an audit log that just says, I want to see what our users have been doing on that platform. Are they using it? Lucidchart is a good example. Getting Lucidchart account activity and usage information is impossible. So any new application that we were looking to deploy, it's like, what reports can I run out of it? Something like Dropbox has, an expanding, array of reports and auditing that we can get out of it. And you can get a great, very granular look at who's done what, where, and how. I think it's
interesting because I think G Suite does the like recent activity very well, but it doesn't really do the like total activity very well. So this is sort of like a weird side note to like analytics and auditing is we also do these like year-end wrap-ups on a lot of our teams where people want to know like who created the most Google Docs this year.
Yeah.
Like who sent the most Slack messages. Like it's funny that like with Google, I can find out like who did that stuff for the last 30 days, but I can't find that stuff for any length of time longer than that. And so it's funny how like, people think about auditing as like a snapshot of what people have done recently, but I'm like, I want to know what they did in June. Like,
it's even harder to find someone that even goes back past 90 days.
Yeah.
I'll have to just cover logs for 90 days.
to centralize all of our logs across all these systems under Sumo Logic, which is helpful. But again,
You do a lot of tweaking though
only
for
if
that,
the
right?
provider allows you to export them in a way.
Well, and with Sumo Logic, you have to like groom those logs, right?
Oh, we've got, yeah.
You put in a lot of time to make them usable.
Yeah, we definitely have a few local experts, which makes that a lot easier because it's almost like a full-time job. The amount of data that we're putting in there between our own platform that we're hosting and then all the services that the SaaS services we leverage. So it is a huge effort to make it work for you.
Yeah, we just implemented threat scanning. So something similar where it's across all these different kinds of systems and all of those different kinds of logs. Like you just have to decide, somebody has to take the time to go through and figure out what is the most important.
Well, I'm curious if everybody's, SSO is on here. Like that's clearly like a must-have for us, and we're like taking a level deeper and pushing for vendors that leverage SCIM and the ability to provision and deprovision automatically, because we're finally hitting that inflection point where we can't be managing manually deprovisioning accounts with the size team that we have. I'm just curious how large each of your users, how many users you're each supporting.
So I'll go. We have 2,000 users, and I have 18 people in our team.
And we have 1,000, and I have 11 people.
We have 300, and I have 3 people, but one's a data engineer, so it doesn't do any of this stuff.
I have 1,400 identities with 2,000 accounts in total. That's including our service accounts and such.
600.
And we have about 9 support folks, but only 2 identity folks, including myself.
All right, that's quite a high ratio. All right, everybody else I think is almost like 1 to 100. 1 support person to 100 end users. Who else? It was
well, I have 1 support person and then me to pick up the slack.
Yeah, our ratio is 75 to 1, but it does include people who aren't technically support. Although, like, if a user comes up to me with a broken computer, like, what am I going to do? Like,
right. But our design doesn't know support, so we're 1 to 300.
Huh.
Right.
Yeah, we're 420 people, but growing pretty rapidly, and we've got 2 on our team, me being one of them.
Yeah, if you're doing
that's
account management, then it's a bit easier. But it's if you're also doing like the end, the laptop hardware support and all the other infrastructure, then that's when you do need more bodies, I feel.
Well, and Colleen is an automation expert. Like that's how you make those ratios work. That 300 to 1 is by automating that stuff. And you're right, it is SCIM provisioning, API access, like all of that stuff is what makes that happen. And yeah, I think SCIM provisioning, my one caveat with SCIM provisioning is more and more I'm seeing companies when they implement SCIM provisioning, they're not implementing like user deletions. They're only implementing like user deactivations, right? So it's not costing you money, but the person is still there.
Yep.
Right.
I couldn't agree with you more on that.
Slack is primary for that.
Well, yeah, you can't delete a user in Slack.
You can't delete them, yeah. And Okta used to be that way, but luckily, thankfully,
our ticketing system is that way. But Zoom is also that way. Like we delete our users in Zoom, but you can't do that via their API.
Yeah.
Which is a big PETA.
My thing with SCIM is I love if you have and support SCIM, but I love you even more if you support push groups.
Totally. I totally agree with that.
And not a lot of places implement push groups.
I feel like push groups is the like forgotten part of that.
Right. I mean,
what is push groups for those that aren't as clever as others?
So push groups, you can set different like permission roles based off the access that you have or the group membership that you have. We, in my organization, we tend to use push groups a lot with G Suite, and maintaining user distro groups.
Yeah, so it literally, Colin, it pushes a group from one application to another. So, and you can assign different things based on that group. So, so you manage it, for instance, in Okta,
Right. Okay.
and then you push it into wherever you need to. So we use push groups in Slack Enterprise to make sure people get into the right workspaces.
Okay.
So we assign their workspaces based on their organization that they're a part of.
Yeah, but those groups should be able to be synced to your main identity provider. So you provision them in your main identity provider, and then they're everywhere. That's how it
and then you can just push them out to the entire organization. Yeah.
In Slack, in everywhere, basically.
But not all
and then
applications.
you only have to assign one group, or you have it in every tool. Yeah.
All right. Very good. All right. Well, we've got 5 more minutes that I've scheduled and set aside for myself for this call. I'll have to disappear at 2:45. You guys can certainly carry on going and chatting. I just, is this a beneficial 45 minutes to, brainstorm, work group, share information and ideas?
Yeah. Great.
I hope it was helpful for everybody else. It certainly was helpful for me. Thanks,
It was great.
We're all going to want contributing acknowledgements in the
yes, you will all get one.
Be a full list of people.
And you guys are welcome to stay on the document, make comments, suggestions, whatever you want to do, because you have the access now. So
cool.
It will evolve. You'll see it.
Cool. What would people like to see for the rest of 2020 in these Solve meetings, events? Crickets.
I'd be curious if there was a way to submit ahead of time, like a biggest challenge, and even if we got to tackle like 1 or 2 of them. It's always interesting to me to hear what others are facing, and generally, that's why some of these public Slack groups are so helpful, is that you can just toss an issue out there, and
I feel like we're making the meeting process more complicated, Colin. But I wonder if you could potentially make a registration page where people submit like a topic as they register. They don't have to, but it would be a good place to do that.
Okay, I see what we can do, and this Bike's suggestion of we doing it as an expansion of the public group, the Better IT. We could, I'm sure Better Cloud would be able to help, or Ali, or somebody on the channel, strip out some of the popular or the key posts, and we could have a further, group discussion, or bring some of those people in, especially if there, was a problem, and then later on in the week or the conversation there was a solution. We can try and invite that person and get them to explain, how it was solved. Because there's that great, interesting sub-thread. I hate the way that some of the threads get squashed together, because they're hard to follow, and you end up having to open them in other tabs to keep track of them. About switching MDM provider, and there was people asking, how good is, G Suite MDM for iOS? Do I need to be paying for AirWatch when I could be utilizing, a free service, or making the best use of your licensing, that's already being paid for? And another, of course, doing a little sales pitch, another justification for upgrading to enterprise, Rose, would be that you could then ingest all of your logs into BigQuery, which we've been looking to do. But of course, then it does come with some expense, because you've got to store all of that BigQuery stuff. So
I was going to say, more and more, as we look at being security compliant, we're looking more and more at getting enterprise, because it's all built in there, and it costs about the same as all the tools you have to get to do it anyway.
Yes, context-aware access and some of the other stuff that's coming is absolutely amazing. So
yeah,
it's exciting. All right.
If you're not part of the LinkedIn group, by the way, the SaaSOps LinkedIn group, you should join. Colin and I are admins.
Yeah, with a few others.
Pushing messages.
Is it Blair who posts a lot, doesn't he, in there? He's
Yeah, it's Blair. Yeah.
Yeah, who's now a better clouder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, if whatever I guess I can do as an admin of Better IT to support this or post or maybe help build that registration form, whatever that may be, just let me know, because I think this is great. This is valuable for me. I think, like you guys are saying, having these topics and just kind of talking through it as the agenda it's a really good idea. It seems to be working. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Remember Best of Better
IT? Yeah, we should get that going again.
I feel like that's almost like that, like topics that people were talking a lot about, like cared a lot about, that were really interesting. Like I feel like that's really helpful for this. So
sure, yeah.
I'm not sure if it needs to live on in its original incarnation, but it was.
Rose, what was this?
The Best of Better IT. Do you remember?
There's a chat.
It was like 2.5, 3 years ago.
There's a channel, Colin, and at one point we were doing a
there was like an email newsletter too.
Yeah, there was a newsletter we were doing for a bit,
that you missed this week.
Okay.
And some of it was like I joined a whole bunch of channels because of it, they would be like, oh, we had this really excellent conversation in Apple, right? But like over here in G Suite, it was like crickets. So not that it's ever crickets in G Suite, but
yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of those conversations are lost because of the 10,000 message cap in the free Slack. So it's going to be hard to revive them. But maybe that's a conversation for a different time, right? Can Better Cloud sponsor turning this into a paid community so we can do some of those cool integrations or have all these messages? But that's for a different time, I think.
Yeah, and then the other conversation is, can that be offset by occasionally getting a partner to access to that Better Cloud community?
Sure.
To make the so it isn't a totally subsidized Better Cloud service. If we get the whole SaaS community to start sponsoring.
Yeah. And I think that's the intention, right? I think the community is not meant to be Better Cloud centric.
No.
And that was intentional. So
yeah. Like I mentioned another product today from another company, and I felt completely fine because it isn't like your own or the company Better Cloud's own Slack environment.
Right.
All right. Cool. All right. Well, this is great. I'm gonna have to go and run to another meeting. Enjoy the weekend. I know, unfortunately, those in the New York area, I think it's going to be horribly wet tomorrow. It's going to rain all the time. Hopefully, other areas have better weather to enjoy, make the most of the weekend.
I'm going to be at the slopes.
Oh, yes. All right. Yeah, I'll put it on the calendar for another 3 or 4 weeks.
Yep. Until next time.
See ya.
Sure, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.